History is not always found in dusty books or quiet archives. Sometimes it's written in the wind. It's etched in the clouds by the sheer force of a human will that refuses to be bound by gravity or by expectation. In the early 20th century, the sky was a new ocean, a vast, terrifying, and beautiful expanse that beckoned to the brave. It was a cathedral of the air, and it demanded pioneers. Most of them were men. But this is not their story. This is the story of a voice that crackled over a radio in the middle of the world's largest ocean, a voice that refused to be silenced, even when the world tried to tell her who she was supposed to be. This is the story of Amelia Earhart. And to understand her, you cannot begin with her fame. You must begin in the quiet fields of Kansas. She was not a conventional girl. Born in 1897, Amelia Mary Earhart was a creature of adventure long before she ever saw an airplane. While other girls were taught to be quiet, she and her sister, Muriel, nicknamed Pidge, built their own roller coaster in their backyard, a dangerous, rickety thing made of planks and a wooden box. Amelia, of course, took the first ride. She crashed, tore her dress, bruised her lip, and emerged with a feeling she would chase for the rest of her life, a feeling of exhilaration. Her childhood was not a storybook. Her father's struggle with alcohol meant the family moved often, the ground beneath her constantly shifting. But this instability didn't break her. It forged her. It made her fiercely independent. She saw her first airplane at the Iowa State Fair when she was 10. It was, in her words, a thing of rusty wire and wood. She was unimpressed. The pilot looked bored. The sky, it seemed, could wait. The Great War came, and Amelia, now a young woman, went to Toronto to work as a nurse's aide. She tended to the wounded pilots, the young men who had seen the new battleground of the sky. She listened to their stories, stories of loops and dives, of a freedom she had only dreamed of. The seed was planted. Then came the day, 1920, Long Beach, California. Her father took her to an air show. A pilot named Frank Hawks offered to take her up for $10. As the biplane lifted off the ground, as the wind whipped her hair and the world fell away beneath her, everything clicked. "As soon as we left the ground," she later said, "I knew I had to fly." It was not a wish, it was a fact. She took a job at the local telephone company. She worked as a photographer. She drove a truck that hauled sand and gravel. She saved every penny. She cut her hair short like the other female pilots, the flyers. She bought a leather jacket and wore it for 3 days straight, sleeping in it, to make it look worn. And finally, she bought her first plane, a second-hand, bright yellow biplane. She named it the Canary. She was at last a pilot. Music swells, becoming more determined. But the world was not yet ready for her. In 1928, she received a phone call that would change her life. A wealthy socialite wanted to sponsor the first woman to cross the Atlantic in a plane. Amelia was perfect. She was educated, she looked the part, and most importantly, she was a pilot. She jumped at the chance. But when she arrived for the friendship flight, her heart sank. She would not be flying the plane. She was to be a passenger, a log keeper. Her own description was the most brutal. She was just a sack of potatoes. When the plane landed in Wales, the world exploded. She was a hero. Lady Lindy, they called her, a female Charles Lindbergh.
She was paraded through cities, given the key to New York. But in the noise of the cheering crowds, Amelia felt only a deep, cold shame. She had been celebrated for something she hadn't done. And she made a promise to herself, a quiet, ironclad vow. The next time, she would do it right. The next time, she would go alone. That next time came in 1932. Music shifts. It's tense, dramatic. Show images of a small, single-engine plane against a vast, dark ocean. This was the real thing. No co-pilots, no navigators, just Amelia and her small red Lockheed Vega. 5 years to the day after Lindbergh's flight, she took off from Newfoundland, aiming for Paris. From the moment she left the land, the Atlantic tried to kill her. A storm rose up, a black wall of wind and ice. Her altimeter, the instrument that told her how high she was, failed. She was flying blind. Ice, heavy and thick, began to coat the wings. The plane became too heavy. It entered a terrifying spin, spiraling down, down, down toward the black, churning waves. She saw the whitecaps of the waves just feet below her before she managed to wrestle the plane back, pulling up, her heart pounding in her chest. Then she smelled gasoline. A fuel line had ruptured, cold fuel leaking into the cockpit. One spark, and she would be a fireball. As if that wasn't enough, the exhaust manifold had cracked, a bright blue flame now shooting from the engine, a constant, terrifying fire just outside her window. Paris was impossible. She was flying a broken, leaking, burning machine. She just needed to find land, any land. After nearly 15 agonizing hours, she saw it. Green, the coast of Ireland. She brought the sputtering plane down in a pasture, scaring a herd of cows. A farmhand walked up, staring at the strange machine and the disheveled woman who climbed out. "Have you flown far?" he asked, in perhaps the greatest understatement in history. Amelia Earhart, brushing the exhaustion and fuel from her face, just smiled. From America. She was no longer Lady Lindy. She was Amelia, the first woman and only the second person to fly solo across the Atlantic. Music becomes inspirational, broad. She was now the most famous woman in the world. But she didn't just wear her fame, she used it. She used it as a weapon. She became a powerful advocate for women's rights. She became close friends with First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, even taking her on a night flight over Washington, D.C. She wrote books. She lectured at Purdue University, telling young women that their place was not just in the home, but in science, in engineering, and in the sky. She said, "Women must try to do things as men have tried. When they fail, their failure must be but a challenge to others." She had conquered the Atlantic. She had conquered the Pacific, flying solo from Hawaii to California. But for a spirit like Amelia's, there was always one more horizon. One last great challenge. The one flight to crown them all. To fly around the world. Music shifts again. A low, ominous, mysterious tone begins to build. Her plane was a marvel, a twin-engined Lockheed Electra 10E. She called it her flying laboratory. This wasn't just a stunt. It was to be a scientific expedition. Her first attempt, flying west from California, ended in disaster, a fiery crash in Hawaii. The plane was severely damaged. It was, she admitted, a failure. Many told her to quit, that she was pushing her luck. She rebuilt the plane, and she decided to try again, this time flying east. With her was Fred Noonan, not a rookie, but one of the finest celestial navigators in the world. He was the only man who could find the tiny specks of land they'd need to hop across the globe. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter, the Itasca, was waiting near Highland, its radio operators listening for her call. On July 2nd, 1937, they took off from Lae, New Guinea. They flew into a wall of clouds and radio silence. For hours, nothing. Then static. Her voice, faint, cracking through the distance. Cloudy and overcast. We are flying at 1,000 feet. The Itasca radioed back. We hear you. Switch to voice. But she couldn't hear them. Her radio equipment, designed for long-range Morse code, wasn't picking up their close-range voice signals. They could hear her.
She could not hear them. It was a radio operator's worst nightmare. More time passed. Then, her voice again, more urgent. We are on the line, 157337. We are flying north and south. She was lost. She was desperately combing the ocean, flying a search pattern, hoping to see the island. The Itasca operators listened, helpless, as the voice they so desperately wanted to guide faded. Her last known transmission was high-pitched, strained, the words of a pilot watching her fuel gauges drop to zero. We are on you, but cannot see you. Gas is running low. A few moments later, one final, garbled message. And then, nothing. Just the sound of the wind, the static, and the endless, empty ocean. Amelia Earhart, Fred Noonan, and their silver Electra vanished. The search was the largest in naval history. President Roosevelt himself authorized the mission. Ships and planes scoured 250,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no trace. It's as if the sky she loved so much had simply opened up and taken her. For decades, we've been left with the mystery. It's a mystery that has haunted us, that has launched 1,000 theories, from crashing and sinking to landing on a remote island as castaways to being captured by the Japanese. We will likely never know the truth. But perhaps the mystery of how she died is not the real story. The real story is how she lived. Amelia Earhart didn't just fly airplanes. She flew in the face of every expectation. She proved that courage has no gender, that dreams have no limits. She showed us that the only borders that truly exist are the ones we place on ourselves. Her legacy isn't lost in the depths of the Pacific. It's in every person who looks up at the sky and dares to dream. She remains, forever, a pioneer. Lost, but never forgotten, on that endless, final horizon.